All right, so when it comes to CSS animations, there are actually two typical ways by which we can animate items in CSS. The very first of them is the transform, the transitions, right? Transition, and then the second is a typical animation property. So we can use the transition property in CSS to animate elements. Or we can also use the animation property to animate our elements. And the transition, it's a lot more simple. And what that does is it waits until there is a change in property on an element, and we can now apply those styling or whatever it is to it. We're going to be looking at that right away. All right. So first of all, what I'm coming here is let me come here and create a div and give it a class of container. Right. Okay. Then what I'm coming to do is let me give it another child. So I have two divs here. Let me come back here. Then in my CSS, I am importing the pop-ins font. I have my CSS reset. Then also I have the body which I've applied the style. Back here, I'm gonna select my container. Then I'm gonna give it a width of 350 pixels. Then I'll give it a height of 350. That's low. That's why, yeah. Then let me give it a border of 5 pixels solid blue, and we have it showing here for us. Oh, with 350 pixels. All right, so we have the width showing over there. Then I can come to my child, and then I can give it a width of 150 pixels and a height of 150 as well. Then I'll give it a background color of red. Great, so we have it over there. Then all we can do is we can come back to our container, and then we say when our container is hovered, then if the container is hovered, then let's apply a style to what the child. Then we can say color, sorry, background color. I can change the, I can make the background color now aqua, right? So when I hover on the parent, that is the container, you realize that the child now changes the background color to aqua. And then what I can do is come back onto the child and apply what? A transition. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is call the transition property. Then we are going to have a transition duration. Transition duration. Then we're going to have a timing function, a transition timing function. All right. So transition timing function. And then we can have our transition delay. We have our transition delay, and we're going to be looking at this for the transition property, right? So the transition property now says what property are we coming to apply the transition to? And over here, let me just add another color. Let me add another property and say transform. Then I would go to rotate. Let me give it a 90 degrees rotation. Rotate y. Let me change it x. Why this is not. I don't know. Let me use a transform. No, sorry, translate. Translate. Then I can give it a translate x. and let me give it a 100%. All right, then you realize that when I hover on the parent, our child element now moves on the x-axis by what? By 100%. The 100% is its width, so that's 150 pixels. You can use other units like pixels or whatever it is. So it moves to the right, and then it changes color as well. So the properties which we have defined over here can be applied to it, right? So when we come here, we say what? Transition property. Now we are looking for the property that we want to what apply the transition to. So we can say background color, all right? So we can say background color, and nothing is happening here because there's a lot more things we can do. Then we can also say transition duration. Then we can say 0.3 seconds. Let me make it 0.5 seconds. And I don't know if you can see something happening. You realize that the color now takes time to change. It doesn't change immediately like it was changing earlier. Then I can give a transition timing function. Then let me give it an ease in, and I can also give it a transition delay of 0 0.2 seconds. And if you can see, let me remove the translate for now, and then let me comment out all of them, and we bring them back one by one. First of all, we are going to apply a transition to the background color. Then we are going to say that duration. Now this should take 0 0.5 seconds to what to happen. All right. So when we save and we come here, we realize that the color doesn't change immediately like it was changing very fast over here. Now it takes some time to change slowly. We can make it let me make it 2 seconds, and you realize how it fades in slowly, and it's a lot more beautiful that way. So we have the duration over here. Then the timing function, it only defines the animation curve, and I don't know how best to explain this for you to understand. But it looks when you have ease in, with ease it just changes directly, right? Then we have the ease in out. We have the ease in, which the animation starts slowly and then it moves very fast. Are you getting it? So, for example, we have ease, which the animation just moves slowly from start to finish. We have ease in, and it starts slowly and it moves very fast. All right. Then we have ease in out, which starts slowly, moves fast, and then slows down again. All right. So that is how the animation timing function works. And most of the time, you may not see this working, but then we will be we'll apply some, we'll do a lot of some properties which we're going to see it happen. Right. Then the delay is time to spend, or maybe the delay before the animation will happen. So here we give it what 0 0.2 seconds. So when we hover, let me now change. Let me take this off, and let me make this 1 second. All right. So you realize that it takes 1 second for the transition to apply to it. All right. So we can tweak all of these in a way to apply some nice stylings. We'll look at a few of them in a moment. Then with the animation property, remember that we have the translate here, but then we are applying this animation to only the background color. All right. So you realize that it moves here, but the background color takes 2 seconds to change. Let me take this out. Then I can just say that I want this to be applied to just the transform. All right. And the transform property, that's the property that I want to animate over here. And when I hover, you realize that the color changes immediately because we are not doing anything to it. But then the transform now takes time to what? To move, and it moves that slowly for us. One thing most people tend to do is they apply the transition on the child itself, and I'm going to use the shorthand property in a moment. Another value we can give to the transition property is all, and that what that does is that it's going to apply to all properties. All right, so it's going to apply to the background color, and it's going to apply to the transform as well. So when I save, you realize that the color takes time to change, and then the transform also takes time for that to happen. All right, and that's how it goes. With all of this, you can just take everything out, and then you can just say transition. So what you can do is say transition. Then first of all, you're going to specify the property name. All right, so we can say all, which means you are applying the transition to all items. Then we can now go to what the duration, we can do 0.3 seconds. Then we can now go to the iteration count, and we can say is, and is the default. We can say is in. Then we can now also go to the delay and say 1 second, right? So when we hover over, it's going to take a second, then our transition is going to happen, and it's happening very fast because it's 0.3 seconds, right? If I should change this to um, 0.8 seconds so that we can see it slowly, so the 1 second delay takes effect, then all the properties now are animated, or the transition now applies to all the properties because we specified all over here. One thing that some most people do is they bring the transition to uh, this side, right? That is the change, the property change. And when you go here, you realize that this is going to happen, all right? However, at the moment, let me take off the delay so that we stop spending so much time. You realize that when I hover over the parent, the animation we are looking at, it happens for us perfectly. However, when we take the mouse off it, it goes back very that fast, and it's because this is only happening when the container is hovered. So when this is hovered, then our animation delay and everything is going to work out for us, right? But now it's no more hovered, and so the delay and then the timing iteration is the timing function is no more happening for us. The best thing or the right thing to do is to apply to the base property or the base element. Then the property change, whatever it is, it's still going to be working for it. So we have it nicely over there. When it comes to the transition, anytime there is a change in property, all right, so we can now say translate y. Sorry, we can now say translate y. Then we can say 50 pixels. All right. So when we hover over it, you realize that it moves down and then it moves to the right. That's with 100%. And so the transform properties are there. I would include a link so that you look at the transform properties, right? And then how best you can go with them. You can also see we are scaling this to 50%. All right. Then when you hover over it, it becomes small. If you want it to become big, we can just say maybe 120%, and it's going to increase in size. All right. So that's how one way by which you can apply um, animation. That's by the transition, by using the transition. Does anybody have a question so far? All right. If nobody is having a question, then we'll move on quickly and look at the other way, the second way by which we can apply animations to our items. And it may not seem to be making sense that much to you, but then we'll get to use them from next week, where we'll be building a real project together, and we'll now see all our properties coming out to play for us. So I'm gonna take off all of this thing. Let me just comment them out. Let me, let me just comment all of this out, and then I can come here and let me comment this out as well. Then we can come to H1 and give it a class of heading. Then say, let me animations, right? And I have it showing over here for me, right? So what I can come here is I can just select the item and say heading, and then apply whatever styles I want to it. Then there is animation. What I can do is what give it an animation name, all right? Then I can give it a animation duration. Then I can also give it the animation timing function, just like we have the transition. We have the timing function, the easing. We can do the same thing for um, animation timing function. Then we can have animation delay, all right? Then we can have iteration count, animation iteration count. There are some other properties. Uh, we'll stick with this. Let me add one more animation direction. I think let me add the animation direction. All right. So what we are gonna do is let me give this a name like sliding, sliding. All right. Then I would say this should take 0.3 seconds to happen. Then the timing function should be ease in out. Then animation delay should be uh, for now. Let me not apply anything on the animation delay. The iteration count. Then animation direction. Let me leave them out. But before I go with that. There was something I wanted to talk about. It almost skipped me, and bringing this back here, and let me bring all of this properties here. All right. And now let me just say translate, right? And then I can give it a so it moves towards the direction, and then right. So let me just come to my Chrome DevTools. Let me right click on this item, and then in my styles over here, I have my properties showing. So you realize that the transition, we have the tiny function here. So you can just click on. You realize there is some icon over here, just a cubic desired data, all right? And then this is actually how our animation is occurring, all right? We have the easing and then the easing out. So I think this will help you to understand the timing function I was talking about. This is a linear and it goes the same way. It goes just it starts and goes at the same speed. Then the easing out, it goes fast, slow, and then fast again. Then we have the easing, which goes fast, then slow. No, I think it should be the reverse from rather. It goes slow and then goes fast. Then we have the ease out, which is fast, then goes slow. We have a whole lot of them. And then what you can actually do is you can use this to uh, create your animation however you want it. Instead of the ease in, ease out, linear, and then ease in out, which you can be limited to, you can now use this, change the animation however you want it. All right. Then you can now copy this now. Then when I come here and where I have my iteration, the timing function. Sorry, let me comment all of this out. So I can now bring this in. Let me close this and come here and see what happens. So you realize that we are now having kind of like a bounce effect. All right. So you can get a better timing functions using the Chrome DevTools. I haven't really tried with other browsers to see if they have that functionality, but I believe they should have it, right? So you can use it instead of the normal ease in, ease out. You can do that. And then we can also do the same thing with the animations view. look at it in a moment. I thought, let me just comment this out again so we don't have any more. So we were on animate. We wanted to animate our heading, so we've given it an animation name of what, sliding, then in the animation duration of 30 seconds, and then the timing function of ease in. All right, and nothing is happening to our item over here, right? First of all, for it to work, we have to define a keyframe, so we can have the keyframes and then the identifier. So the identifier here is what, the name that you have given to your animation. So I'll just select that and then paste it here. So we coming to animate this sliding animation. All right. Then what you can do, we have from, then we have to. All right. So from, that is where the animation is going to start from. Then we can it's gonna, to is where the animation is going to end. Sorry. Ouch. All right. So from, we can just say that we want give it a transform of translate x of minus 100%, then to transform translate of what, of 0. Right. So let me just refresh the page, and you realize that our animation is happening very fast. Let me uh, work on the delay. It's now 3 seconds. Let me refresh it, and you realize that our animation is now taking 3 seconds to um, complete. All right, and it's that's slow for us. Then when you're using the from and to with your keyframes, and you can apply any styling you want. All right, so we can say color and give it a color of red. All right, then now we want to give this a color of blue. All right, so let me refresh the page, and you realize that our color started from the red. I don't know if you guys saw it. Let me change our animation to, let me do 5 seconds, but it's starting from the red and then changing to the blue. And when it's done, it goes back to its position. Let me change this to 0% so that we can actually see the red. So you realize that it's starting from red and then it changes to blue, just as we have it over here. Then when you're using the from and the to, you're limited to just the start and then the end point. All right. So a better way to go about this is to say that we can have 0%, and that is where the animation is starting from. Then we can have 100%, that is where our animation is ending. And between this 0% and 100%, we can have maybe 33%, any figure you can specify, and then apply styling to it, right? So 66%, and then we want us to, now before I, let me just copy this and go back. Let's look at the other properties before I do what I want to do right now. Then we have the animation delay. All right, realize that this happens, or this, let me change this to 2 seconds, and I refresh, and it takes 2 seconds to move from left to right. Now when I give it an animation delay of, let's say, 3 seconds, you realize that after loading the page, sorry, 3 seconds, after loading the page, it's gonna stay for 3 seconds before the animation will work. will occur. So that is the animation delay, what it does. And then the iteration count now talks about how many times the animation should run. All right. So when I say five, and then let me reduce this to 1 second. Let me just leave it there. So our animation is now running 5 times before it stops because that is what we have specified. The iteration count is five, and after running 5 times, it stops. Then what you can actually do is give it what an iteration count of, let's say, infinite, right? When you give it an iteration count of infinite, it means the animation is going to keep running forever and it's never going to stop. So that's what the iteration count has. And then the animation direction, it's usually in normal mode, and that shows how the property should be applied. And in this instance, we nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. What we can actually do is use what reverse. And when we use reverse, you realize that the animation is what is happening in the reverse. So it goes instead of from 0 to 100, it's moving from 100 to 0. So instead of moving in this direction, it's moving in the other direction. Then we have the alternate, we have the reverse alternate, which reverse alternate, is it alternate reverse instead? Alternate reverse. All right. So let's see what happens. So that way it moves it starts from the back comes and then goes forward again. So this is the alternate reverse, and then we have the alternate, which also starts from the other end and comes and goes. That's how the alternate runs. Then we have made it what infinite. When they're going to give it an iteration count of two, let's see what happens. Let me refresh the page, and it stops over there. So basically, that is it about CSS animations. What I wanted to show is I have these different stop points. Then what I can do is I can come back here, comment my div. No, let me just comment that and comment this and give another div and make it a box, an ID of box. All right. Then I can just come. Let me take this off. Then I can come here the box and give it animation. So now we have the shortcut for it, right? So we now have animation mode, and then let me just give it an animation name is of what move around, and that one you use any name which you want to what do you call it? Any name you want, and then when you go to the keyframe, you specify. Then you can have animation duration of let's say 5 seconds. Then the timing function of let's say easing out, then animation delay, let's not give it a delay. Let's give it an iteration count of infinite. Then a direction, let's leave the direction out and fill mode out for now. So we have this. And when I come here, I can just go to my keyframes and then say move around, right? But before that, let me make sure we can see our box. Let me give it a width of 150 and then a height of 150 as well. And then we are not seeing anything. Let me give it a background color of black, and we can see it over there. Let me just reduce it to 100 pixels for each of them. Yeah, so this was right. So what we can do is let me give it a position of relative, then come back at 0%. I want to give it a top of 0, and then give it a left of what 0. Then at 33%, I want to give it a top of 0. Then I'll give it a left of 500 pixels, right? And this is what's happening. you realize that it's moving over there. And then we have 500 pixels. I think it's too much based on the viewport that we have. So let me make it 200 pixels. All right, so 300 should be okay. And it moves there and it's gonna keep happening. Then at 66%, what we want to do is let's give it a top of 300 pixels, then a left of what 300 pixels. All right, and this is what is going to be happening. So it moves here from 0, 33%, 66%, then it moves back to 100%, 0% because we haven't specified 100%. Then at 100%, we can now say that we want to have a top of what 300 pixels, and then sorry, a left of what of 0. All right, so this is what we are going to be having, and it moves to the top over there. So we can now come back and then adjust it anyhow we want, so we can have our animation running through like bars. Then we can also specify, let's say we want to specify the what do you call it, the direction. So we could say alternate, right? And let's see how that is going to apply to our item. So it comes back and then it goes back. We can say alternate reverse, and it goes back there and it starts from here again. So there are lots of other properties which you can apply. I'll be including the links to, I think, that on W3 schools and then MDN network, so that you can play around them, and then we'll get to see how well we can apply these animations. And it's not just this. You can apply when you pick a keyframe, you can apply any property you want. So at 33%, we can change the background color to say blue, and when it gets to 33%, you realize that the background color will change over there, and then this goes back to what it is. I don't know if anybody is confused in any way so far. Are you guys getting what we're doing so far? All right, and then basically that is what we have. I have for CSS animations, and we'll be using it to this. I wouldn't want us to build a project today. We're gonna have part of our lessons, as I promised. Part of our lessons are going to be